Hello and welcome to Art Laughs with me, Verity Babs. Today I spoke to Ania Magliano. I'm here today with Ania. Ania, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ania Magliano. I'm, I was going to say my age. I was like, that's really weird.
You have picked a banger for us today. Why don't you just introduce what you've picked?
So I have picked a piece by David Shrigley. I don't actually know if it has a name. I guess it could be best described as like a sort of chicken saying fuck.
Crow-esque.
Yeah, I don't even know what bird it is. Do you know what I mean? Like,
And that's why the bird is like, fuck you all, I don't need don't need your
yeah.
labels.
It is definitely quite a crow like vibe. I think I've seen some other of his with chickens in, so all
Mm.
the birds just kind of merge into one in my head because I don't really care about birds.
I think there's definitely at least a menagerie of animals saying fuck within his portfolio.
Yeah, and I just love that. Like, I just find it really funny.
That's the thing. I really like David Shrigley's work. And do you like follow him on Instagram? How have you come across his stuff?
Yeah, so I do follow him on Instagram. I first came across him in I'd gone to see my friend in like want to say like Blackpool or somewhere like that. We'd been somewhere like random by the coast, and they had a good art gallery, and we were looking in the gift shop, which is actually like genuinely probably my favorite part of going to the art gallery. Like I feel like art galleries always have absolutely sick gift shops. And they had like a little section with David Shrigley stuff, but I had no idea who he was.
Mm.
And I just saw like they had like little notebooks, and it had one with like the three thumbs where it says everything is good, and another one of a cow being milked by a human, and the cow's saying, what the hell are you doing? And I just saw them and I was like, I love this is so funny. And so I bought like a couple of notebooks, and then sort of then followed him on Instagram, and then now I'm just like, oh yeah, he's like the best artist ever.
I really love his stuff. And there are artists who are also trying to do this quite like, I don't give a shit thing of, I'm going to just draw a crow and that's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And they do it in, there's a guy called Richie Culver who does this kind of thing, which is sort of in your face, but it's a bit more sexual, a bit harsher. Whereas I love that all of his stuff, no matter how many times these birds are saying fuck, are like very friendly and nice.
Yeah.
He sells lots of stuff, so you can buy mugs with his stuff on and that kind of thing. But also his works sell for a lot of money. So it's that odd
Yeah.
thing of you expect someone who sells a lot of like books and t-shirts to probably be not so expensive, but even buying a print of his is sort of eye-wateringly expensive. But
Mm.
would you say that he's a good representation of the kind of art that you do consume, like quite funny, quite direct?
Yeah, and like I think I do like art that I find funny because that's kind of like communicating to me in like the same language that I use for what I do.
Mm.
Like to write and perform stand up is like in kind of like the same ballpark, but they're doing it in a medium that I'm like, oh, I could never do that. So that's really impressive to me. And
Mm.
like obviously I can appreciate like a person who's amazing at painting a picture and it's so realistic that it looks like it's like an actual, person stuck in a painting. Like I can totally appreciate that and like the skill that takes. But for me, I think just because it's something that's sort of the same language as what I use, I'm like, yeah, this is really cool.
Think his stuff is good, and it is met by that kind of dual thing of, on one hand, I think a lot of people are like, I don't get how this is art. Not that it's like too
Mm,
complicated, but I don't understand why it sits where it does in the art world. And then for other people, it's a super accessible way to get into art because you're like, it is a sort of Damien Hirst-esque two fingers up to, it's quite Banksy, that kind of vibe. And it was interesting you talking about the gift shop, which I also think is probably the best bit of an art gallery. That was definitely, like, as a child, the promise of getting to go and look at the gift shop afterwards is
yeah,
just, it's a treasure hunt to that. But
yeah.
is art something you engage with a lot?
Um, I definitely. So I wouldn't say like I engage with it on like a specific level of like an individual piece or like an individual like artist like seeking out specific works or people, but I enjoy going to like a gallery if it's free. I haven't actually paid for a gallery, I go to the free ones. And like just sort of wandering around. I definitely have more of like a, like I feel more pulled towards like more modern stuff or more abstract stuff, or stuff that you're like, basically the stuff that people would be like, well, why is that art? Because I'm like, I don't really know, but it's more interesting to me to like figure out what it is than just like a painting of, I don't know, some old woman. Nothing against the old women.
But that's the thing, that when I was first deciding, you know, or realizing that I was into art, it was very much like Banksy's and Hearst and stuff like that, where it felt like it was very anti the generation of stuff that came before that. And I guess also as like a young woman who is going into like a comedy career, there's that similar sort of vibe of fuck you all to it.
Yeah, that's so true, of just being like, these people, and you know those people will be getting criticisms of that, saying like, oh, why is this art? Or like, where I guess I'm sure you'll have experienced this, of people being like, oh well, you shouldn't be joking about this, you shouldn't be joking about this, like your comedy about being a woman isn't relatable to me usually as a man, like as a male audience member. Like it's that kind of thing of like, well, I think it just shows, especially with David Shrigley, where I think it's one of those sort of things where you can imagine like a sort of a dad in an art gallery being like, well, my 4-year-old could do that sort of vibe. And I feel like when I see that and see him doing so well, and I don't know much about like his career or his path to get to where he is, but I'm like, that's clearly just someone who like stuck to their guns and knew what they wanted to do and was like,
yeah,
this is what I think is funny, and like this is what I think is art, and this is what I think is what I want to put my time into. And I think that's a really cool like sort of layer behind it, which is maybe something that draws me to it more, because I'm like, yeah, fair play if you're just going to put a picture of a crow out as some work, like that's amazing.
that like the tenacity of it to just keep
Yeah.
on, like the stuff he does on his Instagram, like day in day out, is posting these kinds of things. And I guess that is part of doing anything these days, or, you know, with like the Instagram algorithm or whatever, it's just like having to churn out that content. And yeah, like you said, it's basically pretty brazen to be like, I'm gonna do this. And the same reason like you were saying about sort of older audiences would be like, I don't know why, you know, a young woman talking about vibrators is comedy, because I like, you know, there's like the old fashioned where you completely, it's a joke and there's a punchline and there's a middle and beginning and end. But yet I think that there is quite a joyous allure to things like this, which is just to be anti.
Yeah, and I guess it probably was easier for him in some ways, because even though he's doing something anti, he's still doing it from like a relative position of privilege. And like I think you see this again in the comedy world, like you're allowed to be it's easier to be allowed to be alternative if you're already like a white male comedian. I feel like audiences get on board with a man being weird quicker than with like a woman or a woman of color being weird.
Yeah, sure. They certainly don't have to be. They don't have to be very weird to be considered the best alternative comedian there's ever been.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I wonder, as someone who's literally never never looked into it, never even thought about this before, like if there's a similar sort of vibe in the art world for people in that position of maybe there would be people who look at David Shrigley the way that some people like look at, I'm not going to say any names, but like certain comedians in our world, and are like, come on. But I don't know. I guess hopefully not.
I guess it's a thing of like everyone loves a bad boy kind of thing of,
yeah,
you know, everyone. A very easy way to, you know, get, probably not easy, but like to get promotion as sort of the next big thing is to be not doing the thing that everyone else is doing. So that goes for comedy, or like I guess for music. But the thing with music is I guess that some combinations of notes just aren't listenable.
Yeah, they're just horrible.
Whereas, you know, even horrible art, you could get away with saying it's art, whereas maybe it's different from music. But yeah, I think everyone, you know, Monet at the time, people have been like, who's this guy? And the idea that all the stuff in the early 20th century is now we sort of view that as kind of like traditional art, even though at the time everyone would be like, what?
Mm.
And I guess that's what he's doing now. So it'd be interesting to see if in 100 years' time, whether we're like David Shrigley, that's very conservative and staid, because
Yeah.
just like
Well, that would be crazy.
holographing their breasts to different people, and that's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
So true. And I guess like putting out art out on Instagram as like a valid source of a place to put art will be probably looked back on as way less like of a left field approach to art than people see it as now, of like, oh, I'm like, oh, that's cool that he's posting it on Instagram, because I'd expect some artists to be like too cool for social media.
Yeah, I guess it's the thing of like websites are now sort of getting a bit outdated, so people are mostly using Instagram. But then, traditionally we'd be like, well, an artist probably shouldn't be posting their work because surely a gallery represents them. But actually, there's so many artists that aren't represented that it is just like having that platform.
Do you know what? Especially with TikTok as well, I'm in that same boat of being like, I definitely like sort of looked at it first as like, oh, this new social media platform, can't be asked. Don't like, it's whatever, don't care, don't want to know. Then started looking at it and was like, okay, no, there are some funny people on here and there are some talented people on here. And then started to try and make them and was like, oh, this is really hard. Like it's not something that people should look down upon just because it's got like just because it's popular culture and because it's for young people and like younger people. I think in lockdown especially, there was just too much content. Like I couldn't, even all my friends who would post stuff, I didn't even have time to watch stuff I genuinely wanted to watch, because you were just like, oh my god, there's another thing and another thing. And I definitely put out loads of shit as well, because I was kind of like, fuck, I need to use this time to make content. But now I don't know. I feel like it's always the stuff that I feel like I put most effort in or like think is actually really funny never does as well as like some shit that anyone could write. Maybe that just means I'm not very funny. But
I guess that's the sort of thing, and like going back to the Shrigley piece of like, I'm sure that if he tried really hard, or probably maybe very easy for him to paint a very realistic portrait, maybe he can do that. Like it's nobody's business, but that's like whatever. So he turns away from that sort of very well crafted stuff to be like, this is what the people want, But
yeah.
But TikTok's that weird thing as well of it's the first time that I've felt not in the generation that something new is aimed at.
I read something about how the biggest TikTok is growing fastest with like the 18 to 24 age group or something. And like a lot of my friends who are older than me use it. Like, I think it's just, it might have started off with a specific age group, but because like as an app it's so like cleverly designed, it's probably just going to get a bigger audience that appeals to more people, because it's like if there's content for you on it, it's so easy to find something that's exactly tailored to your sense of humor or your interests or like whatever you want from it. It doesn't really matter what your age is. If there's something out there that you want, you'll get to it, and then you're stuck and you'll read it. Oh my god. I was gonna say you'll watch it for like 2 hours before bed, but then what a weird Freudian slip to have, to be like, oh, I actually read before bed.
That's the thing. I find that like with my job, that my boyfriend made me dinner, and I referred to the meal as a piece, like it was art. Just because that's just become the vocabulary for something that you look at. I was like, this is that was a brilliant piece. Could you just let us know where the best place is to follow you and hear from you for updates?
I'm at Ania Mags on Twitter and at Ania Magliano on Instagram and TikTok.
Thanks so much for watching. You can follow Ania in the ways written below, and as per usual, you can follow me at VerityBabsArt on Instagram. Please do give us a like and a subscribe, etc., and I will see you next time.